There is truly little I love more than seeing devs take the advice of players on changes that should be made before a game ships to its worldwide release. And with Sword of Convallaria, that is exactly what has happened. My name is Tom, otherwise known as Titanium Legman, and welcome back to the channel. Hello everyone, if you enjoy what I do, including coverage of recently released turn-based strategy RPGs such as Sword of Convallaria, a like on this video, a subscription to the channel, and consideration of joining as a YouTube member or a patron would be very much appreciated. It's a downtime in terms of ad rev. Summer is usually a rough time on the ad rev side of things for YouTubers, so any support that you'd be willing to throw my way because you enjoy my stuff and you want to see me continue to be able to make videos like this would be very much appreciated. Thank you so much. So it's first impressions time. Sword of Convallaria has been out for about 36 hours at the time of recording this video. I've had the chance to play it for 4 or 5. I'm planning to hopefully play it more on stream after this video comes out. We'll see if that actually happens. We've got a lot of potential thunderstorms in the area, but we'll see. And I'm extremely pleased, man. What can I say? I've covered the game a fair bit in its beta and closed beta test releases. It played its demo a fair bit, and I really enjoyed what I saw. But there were definitely some issues. I've talked at length about the problems with the English translation and localization and how, frankly, shoddy it was. How easy the game was, especially early in the game, and how it did start to scale up with time, but it took quite a while, more time than many people would be willing to give it. Lack of any real proper controller support, some repetitiveness in terms of mission design and music. There was just a lot of polish that needed to be done, something we've been talking about a fair bit on the channel recently, and then some things that just needed to be fixed, like that localization issue. And now, I'm happy to say that it's all been taken care of. There are still things to consider when it comes to how the gacha may wind up influencing the single-player side of things, potential questions with keys for accessing story chapters, some of which are time-limited, apparently just due to limited-time events. We'll have to see if that's actually true. I have a lot of questions with that. I need to spend more time at the game to learn about that, but right now, all I can speak on is what I've experienced thus far, and that has been stellar. First, let's talk about that translation. There's really nothing that takes you out of an experience more, especially in a game that is extremely narrative and text-based, that has no English voice acting, than a poorly translated, grammatically incorrect, or just rough game, novel, etc. And that is definitely what we were dealing with Sword of Convallaria in its early stages. This makes sense. It is a Chinese game, and it was in development as we were getting early access to it periodically. So I can't blame the translation for not being up to stuff. I can't blame the grammar for not being proper. But sometimes it's the type of thing that a game doesn't always hammer out by the time of release. Fortunately, though, things are infinitely better. We have proper sentences, proper grammatical structure, wording that flows and makes sense. Actually different sort of dialogue for different styles of characters who are maybe more formal or rough and tumble. It's made for a much more cohesive experience, and I've actually been better able to understand the story and the more nuanced aspects of events going on in the game thus far with this new translation. There's not a lot of examples that I can provide. I haven't played that much of the new version just yet, but it's just a smoother experience in general, and honestly, if I didn't know that there was a poor translation and some very rough grammar to begin with, I never would be able to tell. Now, it's just really, really nice, and I'm hoping that that stays consistent throughout. The question now is going to be, as more content is released, especially new story paths, is that translation going to be up to the same caliber, or is it going to be a situation where something comes out and then we have to wait for the translation to get patched? I would imagine it should be the former, not the latter, as apparently there's going to be about a 6-month delay between new content that's released in China and then when it's released globally for everybody else. And I imagine a lot of that time is going to be spent doing translation, grammar fixing, etc. So, love to see this. This has been one of my #1 issues because it really can take you out of the experience, and now it doesn't, which is very, very nice. Let's talk about difficulty here for a second because, man, they definitely start ramping things up much earlier now. The game is still not particularly hard, especially if, like me, you've played a lot of turn-based strategy RPGs, especially ones that could definitely crank the difficulty up on you. But once you get past some of the initial tutorialization, you will immediately start getting hit, and getting hit pretty hard. At first, enemies barely scratch you, and you can one-shot them with pretty much any attack that you have available. But as soon as you start getting into proper missions at the beginning of the campaign, you'll find that your HP, the enemy's HP, your stats are pretty on par, and they will hit you really hard, sometimes harder than you're going to hit them. That means that making use of the game's weapon triangle, environmental effects like explosive barrels, cliffs that you can knock enemies off of to insta-kill them, all immediately become very important, and I'm very happy to see that, because it actually means taking stock of what's going on the battlefield, making sure that you have a varied party that you're deploying, and actually lay out a little bit of a battle plan before you go in to make sure that you're not losing characters unnecessarily and potentially jeopardizing a mission. Now, in a game like this where there's no permadeath or anything like that, that might not seem like it's too huge of an issue. Like, well, as long as I can clear the mission, it doesn't matter if some of my characters go down, it's fine. But this is somewhat balanced by the fact that there is a stamina system in the game, wherein if a character goes on a mission and clears it without going down, they only lose 10% of their 100 total stamina. However, if they get downed, they lose, I believe, 40%. So you're going to have characters running out of stamina and needing to rest before they can be deployed again far more quickly if you're losing people left, right, and center. So you do have an incentive to actually pay attention and make sure that you're not just unnecessarily letting your team get slaughtered. So I'm happy to see that difficulty is increasing much more quickly. I'm very curious to see what the kind of upper ceiling is. I've completed one very hard, or I believe it was dismal difficulty mission thus far during the week-to-week gameplay, and it was easier than I expected it to be, but I also took the time to take stock of the battlefield, plan out my moves, figure out choke points, different characters that I would need, move ranges, how quickly I'd be able to attack, who was moving first, me or the enemy. And I was able to execute on a strategy that worked, which felt great. But I get the feeling as time goes by, scarier enemies show up and the difficulty continues to increase. Might not be so easy going forward. So I'm very excited about that and very happy to see that they took that feedback about the game's difficulty to heart. As far as other general polish is concerned, there's been a lot to enjoy as well. I've already noticed a number of new musical tracks that were not in the early access, demo, beta parts of the game, and they've been beautiful. If you didn't know, we have the same composer here for sort of Convallaria, who did the music for Final Fantasy Tactics, Tactics Ogre, and a bunch of other really well-beloved turn-based strategy games and just games in general from that older era of gaming. So absolutely phenomenal music. I'm super happy that we have it right now. You unfortunately are not hearing it currently because sort of Convallaria is dealing with a company claiming their music on YouTube and demonetizing people when, as far as they're concerned, anyone should be able to use the music in their videos and not get demonetized or not get their content shared. So you're hearing some generic music or maybe music from another game right now. I haven't decided, but a little bit of a shame that you're not hearing it right now. But if you get the game for yourself, it's extremely enjoyable. I'm very happy about that. And then just the way some missions have been juggled around a little bit. There's one in particular where you do a training mission against the current leader of the mercenary company that you're working for, Rawia. And in the initial version of the game, she would actually bounce as soon as the mission started to go drink or do whatever it is that she was going to do. But now she actually stays on the battlefield for a turn. Additionally, you don't get to select a character for that mission. You get a set roster, including an assassin that has a grappling hook, who you didn't have access to previously. What's cool about this is if you're smart, you can actually run the assassin up and grappling hook Rawia to fight her and get a little bit of extra dialogue and a little bit of extra challenge if you want it before she bails off the battlefield. It's really cool to see that that's an option, and I'm hoping that that shows that there's going to be different things you can do in battles to maybe actually influence the way the story goes, because if you didn't know, there's a bunch of branching story paths, as this is sort of a roguelike turn-based strategy RPG. Think of something like the world system in Tactics Ogre, where you can jump between timelines, get different scenes depending on different things that you do, different endings, battles, routes, whatever. Same type of thing here. So I'm hoping that this is something that exists and that this mission was changed to put that thought in players' heads and show you that there's actually different things you can do on these missions, because that is going to be super awesome. All things told, I'm extremely happy with what we've seen thus far with Sword of Convallaria. Again, I'm a little concerned about things like keys and how they may wind up really throttling your ability to progress through the campaign, but I can't say one way or the other how much of a problem that's going to be until I play more myself. People who have played the Chinese version of the game have said that it's actually not nearly as much of an issue as you might expect. You get a ton of keys, you're able to progress through the campaign basically as fast as you want, but as people in the comments have said, If that's always going to be the case, why have that system in the first place? So we'll have to see if it gets throttled at some point. But as far as just a moment-to-moment gameplay experience, it's been absolutely phenomenal. I've been enjoying the characters that I was able to bring in that I pulled early on with my initial resources. That's a system that we'll talk about probably in tomorrow's video, because I'm planning on doing a beginner's tips video. But that's been a ton of fun, and they seem fairly balanced, all things considered. You know, they get nerfed down to campaign-appropriate skills. You have to learn skills with them, get them leveled up. So it's just fun to have different playable characters to start things off with. It's just been a blast, all things considered. So if you haven't already, I highly recommend that you check out Sword of Convallaria. It is currently on mobile and on PC. You can get it either via Steam or via its own dedicated launcher via their website. And then it is going to be coming to console at some point, but we don't know when or what consoles. So keep your eye on it. If it's something that you're interested in, it's free to download, free to play, including the full campaign. And the campaign is pretty much completely gacha-less. So if that's something that you're opposed to, you can play that in safety. Just get through the tutorial and you'll be set. With all that said, though, I'm going to wrap this one up here and probably go get the stream scheduled. We will see. My name has been Tom, otherwise known as Titanium Legman. Thank you all so much for watching. I hope you all have a good night. Stay safe and healthy out there. And remember, be good to each other. Bye now.